Welcome back to Outside Views, and bro, we need to talk. And today I want to talk about something that, in my opinion, reveals a fundamental contradiction at the very core of a certain political leader's public persona. We are going to dive into the latest controversy surrounding Nigel Farage and the funding of his new home in his Clacton constituency. This isn't just a story about a house. It's a story about a man who has built his entire career on the image of a populist champion. A man who stands against the establishment, against the elites, against the kind of people who, as he would put it, believe they are entitled to a different set of rules. He is the man of the people, the voice of the common person who feels left behind. But a recent investigation into his new home has, in my view, blown a massive hole in that narrative. It has exposed a double standard that is, frankly, breathtaking to witness. So let's lay out the facts as they are being reported. The property in question is a 4-bedroom house with a heated swimming pool in Frinton-on-Sea, a plush little corner of Essex. It's a nice place, to be sure, and it comes with a hefty price tag of £885,000. And now, here's the first interesting detail. It was bought on November 11th last year. And just a few days before that, amid questions about how much time he was spending in his constituency, Farage said, and I quote, "He had just exchanged contracts on a house that I'll be living in there." He also said, "I've bought a house in Clacton. Is that good enough? How much time does Keir Starmer spend in his constituency?" He presented this as his home, a sign of his commitment. But it soon emerged that the house wasn't bought by him at all. It was bought by his partner, Lord Farage, who is listed on the land registry as the sole owner. And what's more, it was bought without a mortgage. A transaction of nearly £900,000 paid in for cash. When questions were first raised, Farage's explanation was simple and direct, as it so often is. He insisted that he hadn't given her any money. He told a newspaper, "I haven't lent money to anybody. I didn't give her money." He then explained how she was able to afford it. She comes from a very successful French family and she can afford it herself. It's convenient, it works, and she loves it there. It's a neat little explanation, isn't it? A simple, straightforward claim that neatly sidesteps the question of his own financial involvement. But this is where the story, in my opinion, begins to unravel in a very public and embarrassing way. The BBC, in an extensive investigation, decided to check this claim of family wealth. They looked into French property and company records. And what did they find? They were unable to find any evidence whatsoever that Lord Farage's parents have the means to give their daughter a significant contribution towards the purchase of a nearly £1 million home. Their findings paint a very different picture. Her father ran a haulage business in Strasbourg that was liquidated in 2020 and, at the time, had more liabilities than assets. Her parents live in a flat worth around €350,000 in a Strasbourg suburb, which they co-own with their 2 daughters. They also own the former business premises, but it's rented out for a modest sum. So, to put it bluntly, this doesn't sound like a very successful French family with millions of pounds to spare for their daughter's new home in Essex. This sounds like a perfectly normal, middle-class family. And now, why does this matter so much? Because it creates a glaring discrepancy. On one hand, you have Farage's claim of a wealthy family, and on the other, you have the concrete evidence of a meticulous investigation that suggests otherwise. And if her family wasn't the source of the funds, then the question of where that money came from immediately shifts back to one person, and that's Nigel Farage himself. And this is where the hypocrisy reaches a truly staggering level. If Farage was the source of the funds, and let me be clear, he has denied this, but the evidence makes it a very difficult claim to believe. He would have potentially avoided paying a significant amount of tax. He already owns multiple properties. His former marital home and 2 investment properties in Kent, as well as a property in Surrey. Because this would be a second home for him, a stamp duty surcharge of £44,250 would have been due. By having his partner purchase the home in her name, she was only liable for the standard rate. Now, it is technically legal for an unmarried person to gift wealth to a partner for them to buy a property in their own name. There is no law against it. But Farage has spent his entire political career railing against what he calls the tax-avoiding elite. He's a man who has made a name for himself by calling out the perceived double standards of the political establishment. And yet, here he is, facing accusations of doing something that appears to be exactly that. The irony, the sheer unadulterated irony, is almost too much to bear. And just a week before, Farage was a fierce critic of the former Labour deputy leader Angela Rayner, who was embroiled in her own second home row over stamp duty. When she resigned, he was quite quick to gloat. He said, and I'm quoting him again here, "You can't be housing secretary and avoid £40,000 worth of stamp duty. It's just as simple as that." He called it a case that screams of entitlement. It's a textbook case of Farage attacking someone for the very thing he is now being accused of. The fact that the amount is almost identical, £40,000 for her, £44,000 for him, makes the parallel even more damning. And the most recent twist in this story to me is the most revealing. Despite his repeated claims that he had no financial interest in the property, Farage recently hired his own expert tax lawyer, a King's Counsel, to get specialist legal advice on the purchase. His law firm, Grosvenor Law, has now issued a statement saying that the advice concluded there was no underpayment of SDLT and there was no basis to suggest there has been any improper avoidance or evasion of tax. Yeah, but here's the key. The law firm does not represent his partner, the person who actually bought the house. They represent him. So let's step back and consider that for a moment. A man with no financial interest in a property, a man who insists he wasn't involved in the purchases, hires a top-flight tax lawyer to defend a transaction that he claims has nothing to do with him. Why would he do that? It's a move that, in my view, speaks louder than any denial ever could. It suggests that there are questions, and I mean serious questions, that need to be answered. And he felt the need to bring out the big guns to shut down the inquiry. But it's not working. Because the spokesman for Farage, when pressed on the issue, refused to say whether the money used to buy the property had come from funds that the MP himself had earned, even if they had been passed on to his partner. He also failed to explain why Farage's comments about the family wealth did not appear to match their financial situation. The silence on those 2 points is, in my opinion, quite deafening. So where does this leave us? It leaves us with a man who has built his political power on the bedrock of a populist anti-establishment message. He has painted himself as the champion of the common person against the corrupt, tax-avoiding and hypocritical elite, and now he himself is facing accusations of being exactly what he claims to despise. He is being asked to come clean, to be transparent, and to show that he holds himself to the same standards he expects of others. And this is the ultimate test. It's a test for him, and it's a test for his supporters. Will they care, or will they, as they have often done in the past, dismiss this as another desperate attack by a political establishment that is scared of him? Will they believe the man who is trying to change the system, or will they believe the facts that suggest he's simply using the system to his own advantage? And this is not just a story about money or tax or a house. It's a story about a leader's character, about the immense power of hypocrisy, and about whether the voters who have put their trust in him will demand the same level of honesty and integrity from him that he so ruthlessly demands from others. And from where I'm standing, it seems the jury is still very much out. But on this one, I'm really curious about your comments on those. So please write it in the comments below the video. I'm really looking forward to that one in a civilized way, please, from both sides. And if you want to see another video right now, the next one is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.